Welcome to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast, where we focus on discussing topics to help you burn fat, optimize health, and improve performance in life and sports. Transform the whole you from the inside out with the holistic method. Let's dive in. Here's your host, Debbie Potts.
Hey everyone, it's Debbie Potts, and I'm excited to have Stephanie Holbrook on the show today to talk about keto endurance, and we'll combine our podcast training and knowledge together to talk about metabolic efficiency, how you can become a fat burner this year, and how you can learn how to fuel, train, and perform as a low-carb athlete. Now, that's the name of the podcast, and I've had this podcast for almost 10 years. If you go back in the archives on my website, debbiepotts.net, John Smith and I started this show called Fit, Fat, Fast, and we did 100 episodes on how to burn fat. So if you want to get more information, we talked about this stuff 10 years ago, 2011, and we went into it a lot with Dr. Phil Maffetone, and Noakes, and Vinnie Tortorich. We had so many people on in the beginning before all this was so popular and really known about being fat adapted and ketosis, nutritional ketosis, and how to do fasted workouts and all that. Now, the flip side is what I shared in my book, Life is Not a Race. Now, most of us here are probably similar to me, that we're a little driven, ambitious, high-performing individuals in life and sports, and we tend to take everything to the extreme. More is not always better is my lesson learned, and sometimes less is more. I call it the Goldilocks Effect, and everything that we do and everything in our body has a right balance that we have to find. N equals 1. So everything we talk about today, N equals 1. Your bioindividuality is really essential, as we are all unique. And so there is not one size fits all. There is a template you can start with and then tweak it. Ideally, work with a coach that can help you figure out the right training plan and matching your nutrition and your exercise to what you're working on and what you're training for. Or maybe you're not training for a race this year. Maybe you're just training for being healthier and improving the aging process. So remember that as we talk today, Stephanie and I chat about fat burning, keto, all this stuff. And my lessons learned in my book, Life is Not a Race, and my manual, the Holistic Method Manual, has a chapter of each of the 8 elements. They're both on Amazon for sale. But the lesson is that I was doing fasted workouts when I had adrenal exhaustion, air quotes around that, when this all happened to my health breakdown and burnout in 2013. And since then, it's been my mission to help you avoid going through what happened to me. It didn't just start happening in 2013. I'm sure I had red flags I was unaware of that built up to that final, digging myself into that hole in about February, March 2013. And since then, I haven't been the same. So I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to dig yourself into a hole overtraining, but it's not just overtraining, it's life in general. This chronic stress that we get will impact your gut health. Your immune system is mostly in your guts. Your immune system's depressed when stress is on. Your blood sugar is up when stress is on. And the list goes on of how chronic stress impacts the whole you from the inside out. And as an FDN practitioner, we call this metabolic chaos. You don't know what exactly the root cause is. It's never just one thing, it's multiple things as we get this domino effect of breakdown and burnout. So you can learn a lot on my website. There's free ebooks, and especially the one we're talking about today is about metabolic efficiency. You can find that on debbiepotts.net. Head to the ebooks and they're all free. So Stephanie's here. Let me bring her on the show and we'll get started about metabolic efficiency. Chat soon. Okay, guys, I've got Stephanie Holbrook from Keto Endurance on the show today. We're both going to talk shop about how you can perform your best as an athlete this year to really work on your experience but working on staying healthy through this journey this year, training for endurance events and working on the longevity part of it, because what we're doing as endurance athletes isn't necessarily healthy for us. So we want to find that right balance. So you're going to do these races and these crazy things that we love to do and not break ourselves down and burn ourselves out, burn our body systems out. So Stephanie, Happy New Year. Thanks for joining me in our talk today about keto endurance and the low carb athlete.
Thank you so much, Debbie, for having me on. I'm super excited to be here. Happy New Year to you too.
Yeah, so I'm excited to start this year. I know you've got a big race. You're doing an Ironman, your second Ironman this June.
Yes, Ironman Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah, so part of this, I think I wanted Stephanie to come on the show, and we both have, coached people for a long time, been in the endurance world forever, and really work on reviewing some key concepts that we might always talk about, may not exactly understand what they mean. I do have a free ebook with a lot of the slides that I'll mention. I'll put it's on the website, debbiepotts.net. So I'll put that link in the show notes, but it's really, I think, important to understand why of everything in the world and our health is like, why am I doing this? What is the purpose of this? So like, Stephanie, why are you doing an Ironman? Because you've had experience before. You did one in
2007.
2007. And
long time ago.
Actually, I was there doing that. Which one was that?
Oh, were you doing Arizona? Were you here in Arizona?
I did Ironman Canada and Coeur d'Alene, I think, that year. But like, why did you decide to do a race? Let's start with that.
Why did I do the race in the first place?
No, why are you signing up this year? Why are you doing an Ironman?
This year. This year, it just seemed like when I did the first Ironman, I followed the traditional high carb, low fat training, and I trained with friends, and we did a lot of group training together, and it was just, I got caught up in the momentum, and it was fun. But I also, I learned a lot of lessons about myself in training for that Ironman and doing it. And that's really, after that Ironman, I did some ultra marathons, and that tanked my health. And I thought, I was told if I just exercise more and eat less, I was going to be skinny, fast, super fit, and look fabulous and be fabulous. And I didn't end up with that end result. So I went on this journey to figure out what the heck was going on. And I realized my body personally does not like a lot of carbs. And I've done, I did Ben Greenfield Superhuman Coaching. That's where Debbie and I first met. I am a Czech Institute coach. And I learned so many things about the approaches, the template generic approach of high carb, low fat does not work for many people, including me. And I healed my body. I've been feeling great. I've been doing maffetone training to build a base to launch off my training for base building.
For this year.
For this year, for this Ironman. And I just love how I feel. I feel so fabulous. And it's just exciting. I just want to see what's going to happen with my body. And I also am training with other endurance athletes. There's a large group of us here in Phoenix. Well, there's five that I know of. That's a large group of endurance athletes who are going to do Coeur d'Alene as well. And another reason is my son just moved to Missoula, Montana to go to college. And I thought, how great to make a big, sort of long trip to visit him, do the race, visit him, come home. That's my whole reasoning behind doing Coeur d'Alene. I am doing it as a Ironman Foundation athlete. So if you are feeling generous and want to pay it forward, you can donate to my fundraiser account.
I could get a spot. My friend Renee, who I met here in Solana Beach swimming with her, she's an ex-pro triathlete. I found she trained with Mark Allen and all those guys back in those days. And so she's amazing to talk to. But anyways, she's part of the foundation and she has spots for Coeur d'Alene Ironman for what you're doing. It's like, I don't know about that, if I can do that. But I'm like, Stephanie's doing it. Maybe I should do it too.
But I know, but it's so hard. Aren't endurance athletes the worst about peer pressure?
I know, so bad.
I mean, I don't like, people think like, how can you like do all this stuff, this training? I was like, it's a little bit of it is you get swept away with the momentum. And I think that that's something that it's really, I started training and I knew I needed to build a bigger base after Ironman Arizona. My fasting insulin levels are 7 and they should be less than 5. And I was like, I got to get that down. So I need to do some MAF training. And I had to stop riding with my friends. They all were dropping me because my MAF heart rate was, my speed was too too slow. And I thought, well, that's a bad sign in itself that, my MAF, I should be able to keep up with them with MAF heart rate. And because I used to. And I trained for the Ironman Arizona just with my friends, and I didn't follow any heart rate training. And I just think I've been thinking about this a lot. My goal for January is to do 1,000 miles on my bike. And I have a lot of thinking time doing that. And I thought, there's such a difference between training and socializing. When you just go ride with your friends and you have no plan, you're just like, I'm going to show up and have a good time. That's fun. That's socializing. That's not structured training. That's not training. That's not training to do better.
It should be fun though. I mean, why do it if it's not fun?
It is fun, but I think sometimes if you want to improve your health, you have to make a little bit of sacrifices. After January, I'll go back to riding with my friends, but building my base, I have to do that on my own, because it's just like a waste. For me, it's like I drive somewhere to get on my bike and then I'm with them for 15 minutes and I'm like, well, my heart rate's creeping up. I'm not going above 140. My heart rate's going above 140. I'm slowing down. So it's just.
But that's what you should do. I mean, I think when I'm coaching people, and myself for years, I've done my own training on my long rides because I need to stick in my heart rate zone, especially on long rides. You can place, the workouts when you want to have time to do tempo or some like TT kind of time trial pieces in there. Then I'll meet with people that are faster. Like my friend Joel, we used to ride. He rides short and rides hills. And to ride with him, I knew I'd need him when I had to do a harder workout. But when I'm doing a long ride, Neil and I will go ride and, it's okay to be in front or behind and just go by my own heart rate. And that's my pace. I stopped training with groups of people a long time ago on Saturdays for my long ride because it stresses me out because I'm competitive and I don't want to be behind. And so I'd get grumpy and irritated and mad. I'm like, okay, I can't ride with people, even though it's fun to be social, but I like to be able to go when I'm ready to go. And I like to go my own pace, and having the pressure in a group, it's got its place, I think if you're training for endurance events, it's definitely something you want to look at who you're riding with.
I will be, after January, I'll be assessing, what rides I want to go to. But right now, because I'm trying to get my fasting insulin down, I have a blood test next week and I'll see where I'm at. But I'm not going to ride with other people because I'm not going to get my heart rate above my Maffetone heart rate.
Yeah. So let's get focused on the definitions. I know I'm going to share my screen real quick, but I want to go through kind of what is metabolic flexibility, efficiency. And I did these slides for KetoCon this year and that we did from virtual, but can you see my screen? Yeah, I see you over there. So let me make full size here. So here. So learning to be fat adapted is what I think we should start with talking about today, right? We want to go over some basic definitions. And it's, instead of burning carbs, we want to be able to train the body when you're going endurance, especially to be reliant on fat fuel tanks instead of carbohydrates. And what Stephanie was saying is we used to be told, and probably still are, my marketing is that you need to have all these sugary drinks every hour. And I still see people all the time when I'm running on trails here, biking, eating goos and having, Gatorade on a ride, that really your body should be burning fat. And if you want to work on performance longevity, I think that's where to start. And this podcast is strategically planned to have it beginning of the year. So you can look at your whole year calendar. So some things to think about metabolic flexibility. Anything want to go over what that means? So metabolic flexibility is defined as ability to adapt substrate oxidation rates in response to change of fuel availability. So it's being able to switch back and forth, and depending on your main tank is your fat fuel tank, but you have your backup tank that I think of as rocket fuel. And that's what we'll talk about that carb timing that we'll talk about. Not all, zero carbs is not ideal. It's just placement of your carbs, your carb timing that we talked to Peter Defty, that we've learned a lot from in that part of the OFM. But anything metabolic flexibility you want to add here, and Stephanie go into a little more?
Right. Well, because my company is named KETO ENDURANCE, people assume that I promote no carbs ever. And that's not really what I promote. I promote burning fat as your primary source of fuel and timing carbohydrates where they give you a performance benefit without a health disadvantage. So I think that that's, probably the big discrepancy in what people's perception is. Mm-hmm. And something that people don't realize is that your body, when you're eating a certain fuel, your body rebuilds itself with that fuel that you give it. So if you're eating fat as fuel, your body has the enzymes, all of that to break down the fat. It upregulates that. So if you're only using carbohydrates for racing is fine, but you still need to practice with them, or it won't have the enzymes and the system to really use that fuel efficiently. So it's I was talking to a friend, and he was saying about Zach Bitter talks on his podcast about his high fat, low carb, and then protein stays constant. And then when he gets close to his bulk of training, it switches. And I would say that that's basically what I recommend. It's, we both worked with Peter and worked for Peter before. And I think that and I've noticed with people's just training and racing, but the amount of carb that you can do largely depends on your body, your health, your genetics, your sleep, stress, all of that. If your body doesn't prefer carbs, then it's a very, very small amount of carbohydrates to give that extra boost. If you are if your body likes carbs, you should still have part of the year where you take them out, because excess carbs and insulin resistance is very damaging. But your level of carbohydrates that your body can handle without causing damage is quite a bit more than what than works for me. So it's like, even though there's a basic template, that's something that Debbie and I are talking about. Does everybody follow the same program? There's a basic idea or thought, about periodized nutrition, but those levels of fat, protein, and sugar are widely different between different people. Some athletes I've trained, literally eat 1.5 grams of protein per pound of lean mass, and they do fabulous. And I have athletes who have some really problematic blood sugar regulation or blood sugar regulation problems, where they end up with a lot of hypoglycemia, and any little bit of extra protein crashes their blood sugar. So they're around 0.5 grams per pound of lean mass. So it's, the template is there, like we're a starting point to work from, but the different macronutrient ratios that work best for people vary widely.
Yeah, someone was asking me yesterday, do I eat keto? And I hate putting a label on it. I just say low carb or, keto, whatever you want to call what you eat. I said to her, the main goal that I teach people and promote is burning fat. And to burn fat is to balance your blood sugar. So your macronutrients that you need varies per person, metabolic typing, as you said, genetics, all these different variables that we need to take into account. And chronic stress, as I talk about every episode, pretty much, is chronic stress impacts the whole you. And so if you have constant stress in your life, externally and internal hidden stressors, as I found mold toxicity and dysbiosis and pathogens, you're going to have your blood sugar increase without having any change of what you eat. It's from your stressors. So it's really looking at the whole person and working on what I said, the holistic method to optimize your fat burning. So as you said, sleep is essential. I had a crappy sleep. Actually, it was New Year's Eve. I went to bed later last week, ran the same run I did today on New Year's Day, ran today and felt great. And last week I had to walk a lot because of this big hill and I had no energy because I didn't sleep. And so I was thinking, sleep is so essential. If you want to get a good workout, you want to make good food choices, you want to be happy and be in a good mood, focus on your sleep and your stressors, because that's going to impact your workouts and your nutrition, your digestion, your gut health, everything.
Yes, 100% agree. Mm-hmm. That is why my fasting insulin is high. It's not from lack of sleep, because I sleep pretty well, but it was about, training too hard and not recovering. But yeah. Ditto what you said, Debbie.
So I don't have an Oura ring, but someday I'll buy an Oura ring. I should have a few years ago, I was going to get it. And I was like, I don't want to wear a ring all the time, but to get that feedback is really essential to know how is your heart rate variability, how is your quality of sleep, and you can tweak that from that feedback you're getting from your Oura ring. But I know, really training is so essential right now to do that base training, and when it's good timing to add HIIT training. And we'll go kind of back to definitions, but fat fuel tank versus carb tank. You can read all this in the ebook I'll put in the show notes. But metabolic flexibility, when we went over, metabolic efficiency is something I started doing testing on people in 2005 on treadmills, bicycle, stationary bike, and at rest. And I learned a ton and became a metabolic efficiency specialist with Bob Seebohor, and just really being able to test where you are. So ideally, if you can find somewhere ever, COVID, if we can ever do these things, get a metabolic efficiency test to really know where your metabolic crossover point is, that you're burning the most fat at which heart rates, and where is your point, that crossover point, that your fat burning fuel goes down and your carbohydrate usage goes up. And then we want to optimize that metabolic fat burning range through our training. As Stephanie was saying, the Maffetone training is 180 minus your age plus or minus 5 beats. We'll put, you can see that link in many episodes on the MAF training. But, being metabolically efficient, you can see on the slide, if you're watching the video, it's this crossover point that we want to look at. If you can get a test that your carbohydrates.
And you want to move that right.
Yeah.
You want the crossover point to go right.
Exactly. We want to keep moving it right. Like when I was testing myself and had the ability to have access to my own New Leaf metabolic testing cart before Lifetime Fitness bought it and dissolved the company New Leaf, so we couldn't do anymore, we could test this. And it was really fun to see, okay, is my training working at that Maffetone type of training, improving my fat burning range? And I could get up to 160 heart rate and still burn high amounts of fat. So it's how you train and how we eat. So the fuel, train, and perform is what we'll get into. But metabolic efficiency, you can read about that. Bob Seebohor's book is pretty amazing information. We've got tons of information from Paul Larson.
I think this graph is from, wasn't this from, well, it's a very similar graph that they used in the FASTER study.
Yeah, on your mark, nutrition, metabolic efficiency. It says down there, I can't read it. But it's the same thing. It's the same thing as in the book of Bob Seebohor's or Fuller and Finney's book. That's where it's from.
Right. Yes.
And so high carb diet versus low carb diet. And I must say with the FASTER study, I'm sure most people know what that is, but people are running on the treadmill, but it was all men. And so if we go into what I just talked to, did a podcast on fasting, and you have to remember N equals 1, and women are not small men. So all these studies are primarily done mice, and then they're done on men. So if you're a female, you have to take into account your hormones are different than men. But that's a good, anything you want to add on this study, the faster study?
I agree. Samey. We're Debbie and I are on the same page. But I think when talking about fasting, I just noticed the email you sent out about a big group of people fasting.
The Keton fast.
The Keton fast. I think that you have to look at, I'm sure you would say the same thing. So and correct me if you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But if you are really stressed out, fasting is another stress. Stress is a good thing in the right quantity. And right now, because I'm doing this big block of training with lots of miles, I'm not going to be doing that.
Well, if you read the blog, it's a podcast Kelsey and I did, and we said, do not fast stress. And we're not fasting. Fasting means what we're doing is intermittent fasting, which is probably what you do already, 16 hours. So the word fasting, people get overwhelmed, like, oh my God, I'm not going to eat for 5 days. That's not what it is. It's time restricted eating, intermittent fasting, and we're doing a gut healing protocol and more liquids and 1 meal a day. So fasting means different meanings of it. And that's what the Keton fast, well, this will come out afterwards, is a 5-day worldwide challenge with 20, 30,000 people will probably be doing it. Last year, there's 20,000, but it's not eating at all. And that's not a good idea. That's what the whole video, you got to read the
I read the blog and I started watching the video, but then, I just looked at it right before we got on.
I'm just kidding. But it's the video Kelsey and I did. It's a podcast that came out as well. And it is about fasting and chronic stress and who should fast and who should not fast and what fasting means. And there's 3 different levels of fasting, and it's not, none of them are really doing a 5-day water fast, just different types. But just to review the maffetone training that Stephanie's talking about doing, Stephanie, why don't you add in anything with the maffetone, why you should be doing this in the beginning of the year when you're working on your foundation? If you break up the year into periodization, you're working on building that fat burning endurance range right now with the 180 miles your age formula.
When you are training, you're trying to train your body to burn fat. One way is by restricting carbs. Another way is by maffetone, maximum aerobic function heart rate training. You're not going to be, if you just restrict carbs and you're doing high intensity training and are stressed, just like Debbie said, you're producing sugar. That is not going to make you a very well fat adapted athlete. So it's a combination of things, restricting carbs plus base building, maximum aerobic function heart rate training makes you a fat burning athlete, not just restricting carbs or just maffetone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's my whole story in my book, Life's Not a Race. And what I said in the intro before Stephanie and I started recording, it's chronic stress really messes you up. So, not doing, when you're doing endurance training and you're doing it at above MAF heart rates, your metabolic efficiency, fat burning zones, you are causing chronic stress. If you're working out more than 45 minutes a day and you're doing that black hole training or doing too much high heart rate training, you are increasing your stress hormone cortisol, causing probably over time HPA axis dysfunction, just this whole domino effect of things that will happen that we call metabolic chaos, and FDN practitioners is kind of a catch-all term for all the crap that's going to happen to your body if you don't stop finding, overtraining, living life as a race, burning the candles at both ends. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say, maybe this will scare people. I don't know how people are going to respond to this, but I ride with the West Valley, a cycling group here in Phoenix, and I live in the West Valley. And one of the gentlemen that we ride with all the time is at every single ride. He got in 11,000 plus miles last year in 2020. And last Wednesday, we were wondering where he is, and he had passed away that evening in his sleep. And he wasn't that old. I think he was in his 60s. And, I cannot say it enough, and I repeat it all the time. Fit does not mean healthy. Fit does not mean healthy. I mean, you can be healthy and unfit. You know, those are not interchangeable terms. They're not the same thing. Fit is one thing, healthy is another thing. You can be both fit and healthy. You could be unfit and unhealthy. You can, they're not the same thing. So,
Well, that's what we talk about all the time, though, right? It's you and I were
Right.
focusing on being fit and healthy, and that's what we've talked about at seminars. And I was just trying to pull up, I was reading this last night before bed, and Ben Greenfield's book, Boundless, and I'll put it in a blog, but it was about it's in the immune chapter, and it's about how chronic stress can lead to cancer and all these different health issues, chronic diseases. So if you can work on just balancing, your good stress and your bad stress, and having those little breaks, as I say, reset, reboot throughout the day. I can't find it right now. I marked the page last night, so I'll put it in a blog later. But I think it's just so essential. And that's kind of what my purpose is, to why this podcast about health building, low carb athlete, but get healthy for the long term, your longevity. And I think you have to be careful when you're training for Ironman or any endurance events. You don't get sucked into that cycle of riding and training with all your friends, running, whatever you're doing, with your heart rate sky high, that will accumulate. And if you're burning the candles at both ends, eating in like maybe too little calories, like you found out in our last episode we did, you were eating too low of calories. I was probably doing the same thing when I had my adrenal exhaustion begin. I was doing barely any eating. I was fasted. I thought I was just such an efficient fat burner, but I was causing probably this huge hormonal stress to my body and had this cascading events of issues. So tangent, but it is important to do the mapotone training, is what original conversation was. You can see all the benefits, but it's essential part of training, but nutrition we'll get to as well, right?
Right.
It's not just heart rate, but you did training with Peter. You used to work with him. Optimal fat metabolism teaches us a lot of information. And that, I think, what's a big takeaway from the optimal fat metabolism, that carbs are not evil. What do you
They're
find?
not the enemy. Well, this is what Peter says. He's like, carbs are the ultimate performance enhancing fuel. If your body is very insulin sensitive, when you add carbs, they are a legal performance enhancing tool. So you don't, these people are doing all kinds of performance enhancing drugs. And if you just restrict your carbs part of the year, you get the same benefit as a performance enhancing drug, and it's 100% legal. So that's really the big message that Peter wants to get across, is that carbs are not the enemy. Carbs are a tool. And if you use them like a tool, you're going to get a performance boost.
Yeah, and I always believe that we're not saying, I know your keto endurance is a name, but it's not meaning, as you said before, that you have to be in strict ketosis. We're not trying to be, 1 ketones to 3. I mean, do you have a range you want people in? Or are you just saying like 0.5, like Amy says?
I will tell you, as somebody who's worked with keto adapted athletes for literally 10 years, not 10 years, probably 7 years, sorry. And your ketone levels, there's some pretty telling thing. Even if you have never added a single carb, your ketones are really never going to get very high. They're never going to get above 0.5. They'll usually be between 0.2 and 0.5. If you are at 1.5, you're probably not training right, or you're taking ketone esters or ketone salts. So that's, which is I'm talking about blood ketones. And in urine, the urine ketones, I think most people know this, but if you don't, you can only use those sticks for probably about 6 weeks when you first start switching from a high carbohydrate to a low carbohydrate diet. Because once your body initially starts making ketones, and then it starts using them. So really, once your body starts using ketones for fuel, the best, most accurate measurement is a breath ketone meter, but you don't even need to measure your ketones. You can tell how you feel. I've been doing MAF training, and I knew my insulin was too high before I started. And you almost feel like, now that I've been doing it for a couple weeks, I feel like I'm on a drug. I feel so good. And I'm drinking nothing but water and salt on my bike rides. And I feel like, oh my God, this feels amazing. And it was just because the training itself, your body is burning fat and you can feel it. And something about blood sugar too, endurance athletes get strength athletes can get their blood sugar down to their 70s and 80s. Endurance athletes, your blood sugar will be around 95 to 105. So don't freak out about that it's higher than 100, but that's pretty normal. It's because of gluconeogenesis. Your body just gets really good at making protein into fuel. The body can turn fat into sugar through gluconeogenesis. So the numbers, when you start measuring, people get bent out of shape because the number doesn't match what they think it should be. Just know that the ranges for keto adapted or fat adapted or metabolically efficient athletes are not as extreme as I would say a strength training athlete.
Mm-hmm. And I think people get sucked in, and we talked about this many times, that people might listen to keto info or follow stuff on social media, but they don't realize most of those people are not doing endurance training, and especially training for multi-sport races and Ironman, that it isn't something you can compare like, oh, they're only eating 20 grams of carbs a day. That's what I'm going to do, try to get the same results. And so you have to remember that you're different and you got to experiment, that you can tolerate a little more carbohydrates, good quality food, not junk foods, not dirty carb, dirty keto, whatever you want to call it. But the other question was, Stephanie, what do you think the optimal levels for your ketones? You're saying 1.5, but do you find, working with your athletes, do you really care
I think
is?
Between 0.2 and 0.5. Mm-hmm. You're not ever going to get to 1.5 or 0.7. If you're 1.5, you're probably not fat adapted.
Well, wouldn't you say like showing ketones of 0.1 enough?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, as long as as long as you show ketones on the meter, you're doing you're on the right track. Period.
But more is not better.
More is not better. Yes.
Yeah, I think people need to remember, like, oh, I'm only because I would have clients, because I have them use Keto Mojo and test, and people use NutriSense to do continuous glucose monitor. Combine that all together to get this kind of biofeedback to experiment for a month or so, 6 weeks, but realizing that you don't have to get 2.0 on ketones. You don't have chronic illness, chronic diseases. We're focusing on getting some ketones showing because we just want you to be burning fat for fuel. We're not working on some, your epileptic seizures, treating that or anything.
I would like to say something, Debbie, that I had this conversation with a client of mine, that endurance athletes, what we're trying to teach you to do or help you to do as coaches is to both be fit and healthy. If your goal is only health and you do not care about training, you're like only going to run a marathon because you want to be thinner, that's not a good reason to run a marathon. So
how many people lose weight?
Yeah, because there's a couple studies out there that show, especially women running their first marathon typically don't lose weight. A lot of them end up heavier at the finish line. Some of it's because the nutrition recommendations. I used to work for a team in training and manage the marathon training program. And it was very depressing for a lot of women that they went into race day and they're like, I joined this program because I wanted to lose weight. And I think for you and me, we train because we enjoy it and we love endurance sports and it's thrilling and it's fun. I love riding my bike. I love being outside. Mm-hmm. Those are all the reasons I do. And being a little competitive, it sort of scratches that itch. But don't think of endurance sports training as a reason, like I want to lose weight. This shouldn't, like the thought in your head, I want to lose weight. Then I'm going to run a marathon because surely if I ran that much, I would lose weight. That's not a reason to do an endurance event.
Yeah. And I think that's a huge point to make because, there's a lot of people that, that's not the way to lose weight. Isn't to do an endurance event. It's actually putting your body more in stress, and you have to, be careful on a lot more things, especially for females and premenopausal hormones. You got to be careful. So anything else? I want to get into your kind of periodization that we've talked about, how to become fat adapted, kind of the process of doing that. How do we get started January, February, March, and what we should be doing. But anything else with what we're just talking about you want to add on, or ready to move on?
No, I mean, I think that we covered all the topics.
Okay. So if you kind of, think how many people, this is why I'm promoting intermittent fasting, the Keon fasting that we will have done when this releases, but we are doing 5-day jumpstart. And I've created this program in my fitness studio that I had for 10 years, kind of a reset, reboot. And I think after the holidays, people need a little reset, reboot, not making New Year's resolutions, but just clean house, clean your body, clean your house.
Declutter.
Yeah, declutter, but it's cleaning your liver and working on your gut biome and really working on taking this time to get your body ready for the year ahead. And part of that as an athlete is doing the maffetone training we just spoke about, getting your body to burn fat for fuel, but what you're eating. So we talk about fueling, training, and performing. So training, we talk about now fueling. How do you get your body to burn fat with what you eat, and how do you eat? So, for me, it's really getting people to have proper liver function. Liver congestion is huge. The liver does over 500 different jobs. And we're talking about gluconeogenesis and all this stuff. Everything happens in your liver. And you have to have proper digestion and get all the working parts in order. Like an orchestra, all the players need to be working at optimal level for you to get optimal results. So it's not your training, it's what you're eating, how you're digesting your food, how you're breaking it down, how your gut's able to absorb those nutrients. All of that we should work on right now. And I think every quarter, do a little reset, reboot. So how to get your body to burn fat. Stephanie, what do you find you're doing with your clients to get them from switching from a carb burner to a fat burning athlete?
I would say most of the people who come to me are already burning fat, as they're already, if they're not, I'll give them specific macronutrients. And I usually start at 20 grams or lower of carbohydrates, and then usually start about 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of lean mass.
Yep.
And then we do maffetone training. And I would say I'm a big fan of polarized training. So 80% of it's math and 20% of it is some high intensity intervals to keep it from getting boring. When they are first fat burning, I keep the intervals less than 20 seconds with a 5-minute break in between. So it's just not just a fun workout, but not super stressful on the body, and not, like 5 intervals, not a big deal, just to stretch that range of fitness. And then when we get closer to race day during the build, then we start experimenting with fuel outside of training and fuel inside of training. I don't know if I answered your question.
Well, I want to talk about nutrition, not training. Let's talk about how do you become fat burning with what you eat now. So wintertime, pre-season, how are you getting the body to burn fat? So you said protein, we want to be like 0.8 to 1.0 grams of protein by body weight.
If you have a lot of blood sugar problems, probably about 0.5 to 0.6 grams. So if you are somebody who has hypoglycemia, we still restrict protein as well.
If you have low blood sugar?
If you have low blood sugar, and we would restrict protein to a certain amount and then add it back in, see how you respond. But, the starting point is lower on the protein.
Because your body will still search for getting glucose from that protein, right? Gluconeogenesis. And also I must add that most people need to work on their digestion, especially switching to a little more protein and healthy fats, that your liver, gallbladder, bile is essential to look at, as well as getting the proper HCl and your stomach acidity to break down.
Are you looking for digestive? Are you looking for digestive enzymes? Is that the answer that I'm not getting correct?
No, not at all. That's not what I'm talking about.
But yes, but yeah, I think if people don't have the enzymes to break down their fuel, they probably need the level of fat that I recommend is above 60% of the calories for fat, but to satiety. So if you're, at the minimum is 60%, but if you're starving, and I recommend eating more fat.
Mm-hmm. So if you're hungry, don't just ignore that. You should have something, but a fat base, like some olives or half an avocado, hard-boiled egg.
Yeah. Yes. Or just ghee. I mean, some people don't deal well. I don't do great with dairy, so I use a lot of ghee, but I make it myself. It's pretty simple. And just add fat to all your food. So it's, and if you're not doing carnivore, olive oil and, just straight fat to help with the body recognizing that fat's coming in as fuel and that you can use it. MCT oil, it doesn't go through the same metabolic processes as other fats. So your body can tend to recognize it a little easier and use it right away. So that's a good source. I mean, I know you have the MCT oil and heavy cream in the coffee.
I don't do that.
Are all. I don't, but you said fasted morning workout. It's on it's on your slide.
Oh,
not that you do it.
Down at the bottom. Yeah, you can. I used to do that all the time. That's a question mark on there, but I know a lot of people do the fat coffee, but I just do water and I have coffee with heavy cream, just a splash of it. I've been trying to add more collagen, but I haven't made for the buttery, the MCT oil, coconut oil with butter and collagen. I used to do that way too much.
Yeah, I think that don't do that unless you're hungry. But I switched to decaf, but I use a little bit of collagen and sometimes a little bit of ghee, and I mixed up in one of those bullet mixers. But I don't have that every day. That's only if I'm going to have a big ride, like I'm going to do on January 1st. We rode 100 miles. Wow. So I did that in the morning before the century. Yeah. And I did all math.
Hey, good job. Yeah, I always try to do my long rides, math training, but I think I don't do anything in the mornings, weekday workouts, wake up and we work out, but weekends, if I'm going a little longer, depends what time we start. If we start early, I just have my coffee, my water, and then some Keon aminos I like to add in my water. But then during the long rides, I like 3 hours and then I'll have something, but I just don't do well eating and working out. So it works for me to fast and just have some liquids, but nutritionally, I think, what you eat, if people get confused of how to do low carb eating, and it's, not funny, but it is kind of funny that we make it so confusing and think people focus on all the huge lists of what they can't eat instead of just eat a good quality source of protein with the healthy fat. And if you're doing vegetables, add some good local, organic, and seasoned vegetables. And I don't know why, we've gotten it so complicated that, like Amy Berger and Dr. Westman have the new book out and your carb confusion. And it makes so much sense. Like everyone gets so confused about what to eat. I want to be keto endurance athlete. I want to be a low carb athlete. I don't know what to eat. So how do you keep it simple?
Well, I mean, it depends on the person and what they like to eat. But I think that people think that they need so much variety. Mm-hmm. You don't need that much variety. I mean, as you know, I followed the carnivore diet on and off for many years. Well, since 2016. I don't know if that counts as many, but I feel the best when I eat all meat. And I think that's super simple because you can just have meat and then be good. On long bike rides, I just take meat sticks. I take Duke's sausage, they're called shorties. They're pretty tasty. And sometimes I'll add in some ketone salts, but not to make it. I think when something's new, people have I'm guessing, FOMO, fear of missing out, or fear of bonking. The bonk fear is huge with endurance athletes.
Yeah.
And I just want to say, if you have a fear of bonking, then you are not fat adapted, because you can't bonk. You may have to slow down, but you will never have it where you get the spacey, see stars, feel like, you can't move and your brain starts to slow down. You can't think. That's a sign your body does not know how to access its fat stores, and it's a really bad sign for your health. So if you, bonking, or the fear of bonking, or the sensation that you're going to bonk, is a sign that you are broken and you need to do something about it. That should be a big canary in the coal mine that things are going south on you. But aside from what to eat, just keep it freaking simple. And the nice thing about, you even have it on your slide, no bonking. Look, I did not see these slides before Debbie put them up. And we're all so simpatico.
Well, that's why I thought I better pull them up, because they're exactly what we're talking about, because I put this.
Yeah. So it's, I could literally write, because I'm doing, my goal for January was 1,000 miles of Maffetone training on my bike, because I wanted to build a big base, and I thought it would be a nice challenge, and it's fun. And actually, I'm really enjoying it. I don't need any fuel, because even on a 100-mile bike ride, I did take a 4, and it's been cooler here. I took 4 Duke sausages. I ate 2, whatchamacallit, what are those long meat sticks from the convenience store, and then 2 pieces of cheese. So that was my fuel for the 100 miles, and I felt fine, and I recovered fine, and it was all good. And then after the ride, I drove through, sometimes people want higher quality meat, but when you're hungry, I just drew through In-N-Out Burger and got 4 meat patties, and that was my post-ride food. So it doesn't have to be complicated. You just have to think, try it out. Let me see how it feels. Some people, if I wanted to, and I could have done the 100 miles with just water and salt, but then I would have been really hungry later. And I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't think that's the thing. I always have this conversation with myself in long ride. I could go the entire ride without anything, but how is that helping me? Is it benefiting me?
No.
Am I just trying to prove something? And I think that's a big issue with type A athletes, more is better philosophy, that you don't realize, well, I could ride 100 miles without anything. And then I can brag to everyone, hey, I rode 100 miles and ate nothing and just drank water and sea salt. Well, how's your performance? How's your recovery? Maybe I could have gone a lot faster and stronger and kept my heart rate down and felt great.
Yes.
With a little
I'll
something.
tell you, I've done some really long workouts. I did talking about your fasting email, which I didn't read. So if you get Debbie's fasting email, actually read it and watch the video. I was thinking about, I did a 5-day fast one time, and I did some long rides and intervals. And I will tell you, I was a lunatic afterwards. I was so hungry and I couldn't stop eating, and I ate a bunch of crappy food. So it's, I think the idea of just more is better is just a messed up mindset. I knew I wanted food. I ate good food. I ate the food they had in the gas station. A lot of times I'll buy chicharrones in the gas station, because I like that for what? Pork rinds.
Oh.
I like them. If I'm doing 0 carb. So if I'm doing a carnivore, right now I'm doing the carnivore, January's World Carnivore Month. So I'm eating meat, and whether I stick with that the rest of training, that's, I don't know, but probably not. But there's meat sticks and chicharrones at every gas station.
Yeah, but it's filled with junk too. So does that count as carnivore? Well, it's not real food.
Well, chicharrones are just
pork's and salt. Tell me, that grosses me out. I know they're good to have for keto and carnivore, but if I think about
they're so yummy. Yes. Oh my gosh, Debbie, they're so good. I love them. Oh, do you know what? I'll tell you, as a carnivore, which I shouldn't eat a bunch of dairy because it's not, my body does not react well, but I could eat this whether I was a carnivore or not. My favorite food of all time is chicharrones dipped in sour cream with the chipotle, Tabasco chipotle sauce.
Mhm.
Like, for sure, that is like my favorite food on planet Earth. And I don't eat it that often because, for one, I'll eat the whole bag, and two, dairy makes my
Well,
tummy
cow
hurt a
dairy
little.
probably. Do you find goat or sheep cheese is fine? Because a lot of people can't do pasteurized cow dairy.
No,
Dairy.
I can do goat cheese okay, but I mean, it's like, well, it's fine, but I don't eat it a lot just because, like, why?
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Uh,
I do
I
really
was
love it.
I was going to add though, the Primal Kitchen, they have a great chipotle mayo made with avocado oil.
Oh, I've had that before,
It's
and
really
it is
good.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, it's very good. Yes.
Okay, some fat burning tips. I put this in the slides, but I think, fasted cardio we're just talking about. You can have some green tea, plain black coffee. Keon has a great organic coffee. Bulletproof has a great organic mold-free, toxic-free coffee. And I think people need to look at that, as I've just been studying articles for clients on coffee and mold-filled foods. And that's one of them, is what coffee, those K-cups, and having crappy coffee, you're probably drinking bad quality toxins in there. But, doing fasted workout. But I just had this conversation with someone about mini workouts throughout the day. Just working out in the morning and then sitting all day, I don't think is healthy. So I'd rather people do a workout, but then do something at lunchtime. Means go for a walk or get outside and move, and whatever you want to do, swim,
Have
and then evening
you ever
time.
used? Oh, sorry. Have you ever used the tomato timer? What is it
Tomato
called?
timer? No.
It's called a system. It's called, what is it called?
Just to get up and move, reminder.
Pomodoro timer.
Mm.
Pomodoro timer, and it's for working, to be an efficient worker. And what I do is it's 20 minutes on, 10 minutes, or 25 minutes on, 10 minutes off. And when I do it, I walk around the block after 25 minutes, but it's so you don't get too, so you can have short bits of focus and not get distracted.
Yeah.
And when I'm working on a project, I find it very helpful
Mm-hmm.
and reminding to go outside and walk around the block.
Yeah, no, we've got this great backyard now. I'm thankful for that. I just walk up the big stairs a couple times and go up there. We have our new swing, fixed up. So I sit and swing and walk around. And then
I love your pictures. I'm sure if you're following Debbie on Instagram, you can see all of her amazing pictures where she lives near the beach, and she invited me to come to visit, but my husband won't go because it's COVID.
That's stupid. He should still come. It's like you drive here. It's our friends, our sister-in-law from Phoenix. We're safe. We don't go anywhere, so we're pretty COVID safe. We go hiking out the door, and I'll go swimming as my biggest group activity to stay safe. We have swimming with 2 people in a lane. I do that at lunchtime. Rest of the time I'm at home, and we walk in our backyard or bike ride. So anyways, it's getting outside, getting breaks throughout the day, I think is something athletes need to remember, because I think if you just go for a run or bike or whatever you do for workout in the morning and sit the rest of the day, to be fat adapted, be a keto athlete, low carb athlete, you still need to move throughout the day. And Ben Greenfield has lots of great articles on that because he's always constantly moving. And I think it's good to have that, just different intervals throughout the day to get moving. So that's an important part. Here's your slide I was looking for. So prep based, this is what we talked about last year. So Stephanie has great slide I put in for prep based build transition. We'll kind of finish up the podcast today because we'll wrap it up in a few minutes, but I want just to touch on, Stephanie and I talked about this last year on a podcast about, endurance training, Ironman purity of a prep period, base, build, peak, race, and transition period. Do you want to touch on any of this briefly?
Yeah, so the prep period is before you even start training for a season, and this is a good time to get a posture analysis, check your blood sugar, where are you at health wise, and get everything. It's like if you're going on a trip, you're going to go and make the trip list. You're going to see, if you're going on a road trip, you're going to get the car checked out. You're going to get everything checked out. And this part of the training, you're going to be full keto because you're prepping your body for training. You're making your body insulin sensitive. You're getting those lower insulin, those levels down. And then base period, this is where you're just establishing fitness. You're still doing keto during the beginning of base period. If you're an athlete who doesn't have any blood sugar issues or health issues, towards the end of it, you're probably going to start testing out little quantities of carbohydrates during training, but not outside of training. If you're very sensitive to carbohydrates, you don't do well. You're not going to use any carbs during this area. If you're fine with carbs, you're just going to add carbs during training. Then build period. So the build period of training, your training is going to look like the race. If you're a criterium racer, you're going to be racing. You're going to be training short bursts, short training sessions with high intensity bursts. If you're an Ironman athlete, you're going to, if you're doing a hilly course, you're going to ride hilly, you're going to train on hilly terrain. But you're going to add, if you're very insulin resistant or have a hard time with carbohydrates, you're going to only add carbohydrates during training. If you're an athlete who is not sensitive to carbohydrates and you do well with them, they don't cause you any damage. If your body's good at regulating its blood sugar, you're good with inflammation, then you can add carbohydrates outside and during training. Then during the peak phase, this is where your intensity stays high, but you're decreasing volume. This is when you're tapering, and it's 1 to 2. It could be 1 to 2 weeks. And then you're going to reduce the amount of carbohydrates to really increase that insulin sensitivity. And doing keto on rest days, on larger training days, you can still use carbs. Race period, this depends on the event. You're going to eat the carbohydrates that you tested at during training. One of my biggest peeves is before race day, people are like, well, why am I going to eat on race day? I don't know. What did you eat during your whole build period?
Yeah.
That you should know exactly. If you don't know exactly what to eat on race day, or if you have a coach that gives you a food plan that you didn't practice, then that's not a good coach. Don't do that. You should, and you're not,
Nothing new race day. You got to practice with it.
Yeah, practice, and you should know exactly what to eat on race day.
Well, that's why you have race simulator days.
Right. Yes, you should practice transitions. You should practice the terrain. During the build period is a big extended race practice. And that includes food, includes your clothes, includes your bike setup, everything. And then the race period, and then after race, 1 to 4 weeks. This depends on if this was your A, B, or C race. If it was your A race, you probably need a big recovery period, transition period, 4 weeks. Some of it is during this time. This is a great time to go on vacation with your family, that you don't have a training schedule. You're just going to move and have fun. Doesn't mean to do nothing. It means just to enjoy life.
Active recovery.
Right. It sort of makes me crazy, these people who train all the time and never have a time off. I don't think that's good for your mind. It's not good for your body. It's not good for, just of your relationships with your family. Yeah. And if you realize
emotional well-being, I think a lot of it, people are just, it's how I used to be, just uptight all the time. And you're just always about training and what your workouts are, and just a little more uptight.
Yes. This is the time where you're just going to be, an active person, but not think of yourself as an athlete. And if you want, I think, reverting back to keto to resensitize yourself. But if you're a pretty healthy person, if you want to eat whatever, like you're going on vacation and you want to have a hot dog and a crappy bun, then do that in the transition period. Just don't make a habit of it. Like, I think that, let your hair down.
Well, I don't totally agree with that. I think you can eat, I think you still should eat real food and not just think now that's more when people exercise. They think, I'll take that back. When people are training and racing, why I think people don't lose weight is when they screw their hormones up but they think they can eat whatever they want and eat crappy food. And you still need to, you are what you eat and what you are able to absorb and break down. You got to always feed your body with good fuel for, good health, being fit and healthy. And I think a lot of athletes just think they can get away with things, but over time it will catch up to you.
Yeah. Well, I think especially my opinion about training, you should be more strict. The harder your training is, the more strict your food should be, because you're rebuilding that system with the ingredients that you put in your body. So if you did a 100-mile bike ride and then you rewarded yourself with a piece of, chocolate cake, that's not good for you, but that's what you're repairing your body with is a lot of times made with industrial seed oils. I mean,
you're causing more inflammation.
Yes. So, and you're just not going to recover. And then people use anti-inflammatories, which I'm very much against anti-inflammatories during training, because that's masking what inflammation is your body trying to heal itself. So, but if you're going on vacation, if you're going to eat a piece of cake, don't do it while training. Wait until you're on vacation. I'm not saying like stuff yourself like you're, at your last meal, but if you get in the habit of eating, good food, you're normally going to gravitate that, but do it on your off season. Mm-hmm. Okay. That's my point.
Yeah. So lots of information in this show. I know we'll try to do a show together once a month. It'd be great to just talk about low carb athlete, keto endurance, because it's the same thing, just different names for it. But really what Stephanie's doing more of the coaching part, writing your training peaks, and I'm doing more of the health coaching part. So figuring out what exactly are your external life stressors, trying to work on those and work on your diet, your nutrition. I hate the word diet, but nutrition and your sleep and your exercise, right amount, movement, and working on proper digestion, gut health. And a lot of that is what, as a practitioner, I'm doing the lab testing, identifying those hidden stressors, like why is your blood sugar higher? Why are you having insulin resistance? What's going on in your microbiome? How's your bacteria levels and your pathogens, mold? And so we test all that with different tests, like the organic acids test and Dutch hormone panel and all sorts of stuff. But I'm a big believer of looking at what is under the hood, because most athletes endurance exercise, and I was reading too, exercising in hotter weather, you're causing more damage to your gut, causing leaky gut. So you always have to work on a gut healing protocol. I think having bone broth is really great to do. Those other gut healing drinks that you can do to work on that mucosal barrier and repairing it. But I think Stephanie has lots of good information. What's the link to your website? It's Keto Endurance.
KetoEndurance.co. Co. Hey, and I have a special for all of Debbie's athletes. I write training plans, and there will be a link to ketoendurance.co/low carb athlete. And I'm offering half price on just a training plan with 2 consultations. So it's not coaching. I'm writing a training plan with, a description of like the season. We'll have an initial call and then a follow-up call, and then you get the training plan. So it's typically $99 for 6 weeks. And so it'll be $50 for 6 weeks. And It's like as many weeks as you want.
Good deal. That's cheap.
Yeah. It's a special January Well, I'll do it by the end of February. It'll be the cutoff date because this is coming out late.
Yeah. The video will be out first, and then we'll put the podcast audio version will be later. So make sure you guys, if you're just listening to this on a podcast audio version, make sure you head to the YouTube channel for Low Carb Athlete so you can watch the video and the slides and see Debbie and Stephanie chatting.
And I curled my hair for you, Debbie.
I know. Look at that. Did the hair? Yeah. That's perfect. We get ready, got dressed on the top part.
Yeah.
Actually, I have my swimsuit on underneath this because I have master swimming after this. I'm going to. So gotta, dress for podcasting and dress for swimming all at once. You never know. All right, Stephanie, have a good month training your Maffetone train and getting your bikes rides in, and I will do the same. I actually am signed up for Ironman Canada that I did sign up for last year, but I don't know if I am doing it, but we'll see.
Oh, well, if you decide on Coeur d'Alene, it would be super fun.
I don't know if my body should mess it up again.
Well, what's Canada?
It's end of August.
Well, that's close. Well, and then June. Oh my gosh, my race is in June.
I was like, what are you talking about? It's 2 months after your race. August, end of August, not April, end of August.
It's like, oh my gosh, there's something about being an athlete that just makes time go by so fast. Like, boom, the race is here.
It does. Yeah. It will go by fast. Keeps everyone busy.
Yeah, you can't do both.
No, but I wouldn't do both. I'd do one or the other. But anyways, racing is something to do that's fun, and you want to make sure you're working on your performance, but think of longevity and not break yourself down. So hopefully you guys picked up some new tips and help you get started for training plan 2021 or other years. You may be listening to this different times, and reach out to me, debbiepotts.net or stephanie@ketoendurance.co for more info.
Thanks for listening to the Low Carb Athlete Podcast. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic suggestions, let us know on Facebook or at debbiepotts.net. You can help us to continue to grow by leaving a review on iTunes. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.